it really is all about this is how I am. It's a very real makeup, real skin. And then on 8 girls, we're just doing this kind of like magical, reflective moment. Basically, each girl's going to have this incredibly glitter-embellished face.
You can shout out, I am what I am.
She's traveling, she started a trip. It's the beginning of a story. It's about this trip, this journey. Everything is very long, it's fluid. This journey, like going discovering cultures and getting melted into these cultures and then becoming just one culture, her culture.
I was very surprised about this rock and roll side to him, and I am super thrilled about it because he's younger.
I like very much those dress, col roulé, straight down like that. There was with different fabrics, beautiful.
As usual, Giambattista is so feminine. All the long coat. It was my favorite, the black one. I really loved it. And the last dress, the one with all the... unbelievable. That's really very chic and very feminine.
There was also a lot of black, and then there were touches of color with the gloves and things like this to make it alive, the scarves in several colors. So it was not made on purpose, but I like the tweeds and the colors of the autumn leaves. The blue bag is in fact an old bag Chanel owned, and she had given it to this woman called Claude Delay. And Claude Delay is a very chic old lady now, and she gave us the bag, and Marie-Louise showed it to me, and I said, I can make something out of it. Huh? So I made a new shape out of that. It became the 31. Huh? You know, especially this French expression, se mettre 31, that means when one gets dressed. I love forest and autumn. I think it's very beautiful. And in a way, it reminds me to my childhood, because the house where I spent 8 years of my childhood, and I left when I was 14 or 15, was in the center of a forest with alleys going to the house, and it looked like this. But in fact, I realized it only later. It's very much me. It's my taste, my real spirit, but I think in the same time I was very Chanel.
It was so great how he created the show and how he presented it at the Hotel de Ville, that big long expanse under all those grand chandeliers that are as grand as he is and as grand as the clothes. The girls just came out one after another, and those amazing boots, those amazing shoes, and those super short dresses, they had command of the entire room and command of the audience.
It was great to see him really pushing himself as a designer, and you're seeing that he's also really on point. If you're having Balmain doing Dayglow, it's a Dayglow nation.
One paillette after another, and it was not only paillettes, we had cellophane, we had mylar, we had reflective fabrics in every color imaginable, the entire show going from silver to gray and then neon Dayglow color. Nothing says 80s new wave like the idea of Dayglow color.
Tainted love. Sometimes I feel I've got to run away, I've got to get away.
It's the song it had me overcome.
Sexy, sensual, rock and roll, fun, pleasant, beautiful. So we go for the smoky eyes, slightly smudgy, a lot of mascara, and the rest is natural.
It's cool. I like it's like strong, you know. Like I'm like yeah.
Je vous parle d'un temps que les moins de 20 ans ne peuvent pas connaître.
It's a love letter to the things that inspired me for a very long time. With the two things that I love the most, which are, you know, rock and roll and this golden era of couture in France, here in Paris. So I looked at a lot of the pictures from the 40s and 50s, those days, while listening to a lot of Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all of that. So I wanted to do a mix of this, you know, what would happen if the couture woman actually ended up going grunge.
On est heureux, la bohème, la bohème.
That's kind of my take on grunge couture. I use some tartan, but instead of using the regular way, we did it in chiffon, and we, you know, made some ruffles and some constructions around it and everything. So it's throwing in the blender, you know, these two worlds that are somewhat, you know, opposites to each other. And, you know, I think out of the craziness the redemption is, what came out is what you saw on the catwalk.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne...
That's kind of the woman that inspires us. You know, she's very much in tune with what the problems of the world are. With Redemption, we give 50% of the profits to charity, so we like to know that we're inspired by women that actually contribute to this world, that are not just about, you know, the partying and the glam and stuff like that, but, you know, that also have a certain gravitas.
I know it's stupid to be mad about the boy. I'm so ashamed of it.
There is a growing West on fashion right now, and it's true that it was always a thing that was very inspiring to me. And I worked several times, what new twist could I bring into that? And I had this idea in mind, like all the movies of John Cassavetes, Gina Rowlands. It was more the idea to give a modern twist between 60s and 80s. It's a cowboyish mood, but in different ways.
I thought that she was doing what she does best, you know, that hipster French girl with the California vibe of the Far West. And I thought that it was all more of what we love about Isabel, and just extended a little bit further. She was right on point with the fringing, right on point with the Western wear. But that's definitely her wheelhouse, so no surprise there.
Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Interesting palette, a lot of terracotta, a lot of kind of warm browns, and actually having a bit of an African sensibility when the show opened, and then it moved a little bit more into this rodeo Western spirit. Always lace at Chloe, which brings a little bit of a femininity.
I love the twist between romantic but edgy, and I love the details. I love that it's more cool. It's feminine, but it cuts the details. The jewelry is a little bit masculine, like, you know, like big golden statement pieces. And also the accessories are much cooler, and the coats were so nice, and like the shape was great.
I think it's definitely less sort of hippy-dippy, crunchy granola. I mean, I do think that it still looks like what a lot of people think of when they think of Chloe. So I don't think she's taking it completely away from its roots, but she's definitely bringing it into the 21st century, and I think she's making it relevant to the kind of woman who exists today who would have been a Chloe customer 30, 40 years ago.
Chloe's very interesting. I think she's got a almost futuristic take on romanticism. Her perspective is very fascinating.
A big responsibility on my shoulders, but mostly towards Monsieur Poiret himself, because it's about thinking what would he do if he was alive today still, and to transform all his codes, his personality and brand motivation into new languages, into a definition of beauty, a proposition of sensuality that is in link with our ideal of beauty and our way of life also. Lots of draping, beautiful bascule volumes, like cocoon volumes, complex draping constructed from simple rectangular panels. So a few darts and cuts, the fabric just drapes effortlessly and nonchalantly around the body and adapts to each morphology also.
I'm wearing a gold fabulous dress. It's quite structured. It's really nice.
Puffer, 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 swelled up like they were on steroids. He was just doing the biggest puffers and the biggest quilted down pieces we have seen. And not only puffer coats, but even puffer muffs, and even the handbags this season were quilted and oversized.
Honestly, it inspires me so much, makes me really believe in the freedom that fashion can provide. The journey it can give you when you're sitting at a show. It's not just about clothes, it's about the fantasy that's going on in his head. And there's things I was desperate to buy. I just spoke to the buyers at Selfridges and I was like, I've got my checklist, I'm going to buy so many of those pieces. He's just genius. I'm so happy that he's here doing what he does without compromise, with true imagination. You know, I'm his biggest fan.
The biggest inspiration for this collection will be two films that I've always loved, Hunger, and the other one's Belle de Jour. Both of them with Catherine Deneuve. I've always loved Catherine with her beautiful, transparent beauty. Both films is all about the perfect bourgeoise. There'll be dresses, there are coats, very worked on. I mean, they're either printed, re-embroidered, crochet, and lots of cordings, lots of passementerie. Some embroideries are based on the pietra dura from Italy in the 16th and 17th century. You have also a lot of ferns. I love ferns, and so I use it in velvet applique, beaded, this and that. So it's a very rich collection. Living in that highly tech world, what's precious and what's the ultimate luxe are things that are done by hand, because that would disappear at one point. So this is really a tribute to handcraft.
The story really is that this young man meets this burlesque dancer from a travelling circus, and they have a wild night of passion. And he wakes up and she's gone, the circus gone, and she's stolen all his clothes as well, which is why she's with a travelling bag and she's got her burlesque clothes on, but with his workwear or his dungarees or his tweed overcoat or his trousers with a performing bar, and that's the mix of the whole thing. It was sort of burlesque, but we do a lot of embroideries at Galliano anyway. When I say burlesque, old burlesque, Barnum Circus and stuff. And it was sort of an inspiration to do quite glamorous embroideries, stage clothes embroideries. Dresses. We always do a lot, but this time I think also because we did a lot of layering. We mixed a lot of things, and we could show more dresses. There were dresses over trousers, over tops, over shirts, with coats on, so that meant we put a lot more dresses in the show.
We decide for a kind of arty makeup and rock in the same time, so it's a very spontaneous makeup. Navy blue liner, like just one row like this. And we put some gold on the inner corner, a little bit of glitter to make it more sparkling.
You dynamite, my.
It started with jacquard of knitwear, very contemporary looks. It's about bringing the autumn with the winter and melting it up with a little sparkle later on with all the navy blue embroidered materials. But it starts always with a very millennial looks with the high heel boots, with the velvet. And even the print that I've done this year is also about the branches of the autumn that comes into all the collections, all nature, natural movement with natural leads. So it's all about getting the rock style with a little contemporary and millennial looks and sparkles into it.
The story started with Vigée Lebrun, the 18th century painter, and really thinking of how I thought she would think of herself in the 21st century.
This show was really about showing that fashion is a creative expression and how we walked out very slowly to a classical music and then turning into Madonna's strike a pose, talk about know how to switch it on.
Well, that was also part of the collection in playing with a flannel that I'm known for, especially in my menswear. The challenge of using flannel, somewhat masculine sometimes way, but also too in a very feminine way, and how it was used with embroidery and the different ways I used it.
It was magical. It really was couture. Like one of the pieces were tiny, mini feathers made into embroidery and into a fabric. It was so exquisite. The detailing was beautiful, and I think it's a really good way to see it up close like that. Wonderful, really clever presentation.
It was exceptional. I mean, you really can't, in the space of the time we had this show, take it all in. You got to go back and look at the photos and the detail photos because each piece is a masterpiece.
Let the dogs out. Let the dogs out.
The prints were beautiful, that huge, gorgeous floral. There were a lot of hoods, a lot of scarves, a lot of long dresses over pants, which were very beautiful. I think he is one of the most interesting designers out there today.
He's really amazing in the way he carry on Valentino's signature with his own. I love this sort of like Robin Hood vibe, which is very daring. I can't wait to reinvent myself in this new collection.
The flowers, the applique, the shapes, the fact that it's not all, some are bare, but some are so conservative and so elegant. The girls with the light jewelry. It was really a perfect collection. With plenty of color, with plenty of cover looks, and with plenty of red carpet looks.
I wanted to do something super simple but that catch the attention. So I'm doing like this double color glitter, put it like with the fingers, not too precise, but I think it's really, really good.
This collection takes a lot of emotional things from my memory. My memory as a child, being an 80s child, which also takes a lot of cues from how I saw my mother's wardrobe with her Banasi saris. My memory as a village landscape, almost big farm fields, flower fields, almost touching horizon. Or it's a train journey where you really feel the ground is moving along with you when you travel in train.
Here, in the middle of the desert valley, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere.
Then in later phase of life, when I migrated to big city like Mumbai, how the city impacted with its urban landscape and how otherwise grey and glass city takes color from the sky when sun is setting. So all those emotions try to build together in the collection. Last dresses is my most distant memory.
This is the beginning of the end of parallel dimensions, amplified future, distorted universe.
They're typically French, gorgeous, glamorous girls, but we're kind of breaking down the sort of classic approach and creating a very, very matte modern mouth. So it's almost to replicate like a velvet rose petal. So we're layering up these kind of burgundy bourgeois tones of red. I guess it's a bare face with these kind of floating lips. Very, very beautiful.
Questa volta io volevo veramente iniziare con una collezione quasi un po' più da...
This season, I wanted to show much more day wear. So I opened the show with a suit, something I had never done before for Rochas. It's a double cashmere camel suit, and it's representative of my day wear collection. And of course, it's very couture.
Fatto in modo molto couture.
Brocade is part of the DNA of Rochas, so there's always brocade in the collections. This season, it's mixed with small flower prints, which are sort of 70s inspired, and this gives a different attitude.
Rochas was really sweet. It was nice, it's very hard to pick the color around and make it look sexy and interesting. And that's one thing you got to say with Alessandro, that he picks those colors that you wouldn't ever think would go together or wouldn't ever be appealing, and he comes up with ways to make them beautiful, especially when he adds, of course, the brocade and the beading. But I thought that show was actually quite lovely and very commercial at the same time.
The inspiration is from the idea of a sketch, the feeling of a quick brush stroke. We're trying to trick the eye, so we're creating it bit by bit, but it should look like it just happened in an instant. That Mac has come out with is just this really rich yellowy gold, and it's exactly the same gold as in the collection, and it's just this really rich gold.
It's really in your face type of makeup, you know, I love it.
This season, I was inspired by the Art Brut movement. I started with a blank white sheet of paper, and here's the blank sheet of paper that I simply magnified so it's a rectangle in cashmere that is sewn on a tight black dress. It's playful, just like Art Brut.
On joue avec, comme l'art brut.
There's a sweater that looks like a jacket, but it's not a jacket. Let me show you. This is the magic marker strokes. It's two rectangles that are sewn on the center of the sleeve. Two rectangles like two sheets of paper. And in the end, it looks like a jacket. This is like a sheet of paper. Let me show you the sheet. I cut out and pasted pieces of lame on this dress, which I made with lycra, a bathing suit fabric. The cuts are sharp and there's no lining. It's super light and very easy to wear.
We are doing a top knot, a bit like a sumo wrestler, you know, with a cord. And then we're creating spikes with the ends.
In fact, the whole collection is inspired by Zen. I created the design with a pencil on somebody's face, and then I made an imprint of that to get from the curve to the flat, and then we created the stencil from that. The original stencil was hand cut. I hope we get the uniformity that we desire.
I was inspired more with spirituality first. Japanese was a context for various reasons. Also, I learned a lot about it. It was a deep research in terms of conversations with friends and people I know who have experienced it themselves being a monk. A lot of embroideries and the face makeup was taken by the sand art that they make in the monasteries. Well, I'm from India, so I always have a huge amount of workmanship in my clothes. So that is my strong point always. When you talk about spirituality or you talk about meditation, there's a lot of concentration, a lot of effort going in it emotionally. And that's the kind of effort I want to express in clothing.